Seventh hour. The central subject of this hour is the triumph over all hostile forces, represented by Pepi, the arch-enemy of Ra, and by the enemies threatening Ausir. Introduction. Pausing by the majesty of this great Nchir in the cavern of Ausir, commands by the majesty of this Nchir at this cavern to the Nchiru who are in it. This Nchir assumes another form at this cavern. He turns away from Pepi through the magic of Amdw3t and the eldest magician. The name of the gate of this place through which this Nchir passes is Gate of Ausir. The name of this place is Mysterious Cavern. The name of the hour of the night guarding this great Nchir is Repelling the Evil One and Beheading Horrible of Face. Mysterious Way of the West, upon which the great Nchir passes in his protected bark. He proceeds on this way, which is without any water, without the possibility of towing. He sails by the magic of Amdw3t and the eldest magician, and by the magical power which is in the mouth of this great Nchir himself. The slaughtering of Pepi is done in the Duat at this cavern. His place, however, is in the sky. This is made like this on the northern side of the hidden chamber in the Duat. It is useful in heaven, in the earth, and on earth. He who knows it is a soul of the souls who are with Ra. Upper Register. The first figure in the upper register is seated on a throne and holds a wand with a hawk head in his lap, followed by the lion-headed Nchir with the scepter and an in her hands, and by a human-headed Uraeus serpent. All three are addressed separately by Ra. Noble One, Praising One, Living One. In the text, Ra speaks to all three Nchiru. Words spoken by the majesty of this great Nchir. Noble One, give me your hand when Haru goes forth from your rudder. She who adores, let me hear your voice. May your throat be truthful. Living One, open your coils. I have come that I may illuminate that one who is in darkness, that I give a resting place for the one who is in the Mechan serpent. Ausir sitting on a throne, holding a was and an and crowned with the double feather, is encircled by the serpent Mechan. In front of him, three kneeling enemies are bound and already beheaded by a demon who wears cat ears, in later versions the head of a cat, and who brandishes a lasso and a knife. Flesh of Ausir, he with living forms. Enemies of Ausir, violent-faced. In the text above the scene, Ra addresses Ausir. This Nchir says to Ausir, who is in the Mechan serpent, O you, Ausir, who presides over the Duat, Lord of life, ruler of the West, life is yours. You live and you are alive. Being is yours. You are soul and you remain soul in earth. May you be exalted over your followers, and may your foes fall to you, beneath your feet. You have power over those who have acted against you. The flames of the serpent, he with living form, are against them, and he burns them. Violent-faced is against them, and cuts them down. He grills them on a spit for himself. When Ausir is inspected, day after day, I pass by you in peace. In the next scene, three punished enemies are lying on the ground, being bound by a demon represented with a lock of hair. Who is bound? Who is bound? Who is bound? Punisher. Ra addresses these enemies directly. The majesty of this Nchir says, You who have bound Ausir and have rebelled against the foremost of the Duat. Slings are for your arms. May your fetters be tight. Annihilation is for your souls, hindering your shadows. The Punisher punishes you with his punishing knife, and eternally you will not escape his watch. Those who have bound Ausir. The human-headed soul birds follow, wearing the double crown on their heads. Before them, a tomb, holding was and sits on the coils of a serpent. Thinker, who belongs to the images. soul of Tatyanin, flesh of a tomb, he who puts together. The text reads, this great Nuchar says, O living souls on whom the mysteries live, whose heads belong to the images as those which came forth from me, who are behind the flesh of a tomb and protect his body in the du'at. Life to your soul, a tomb. He who puts together, who is in the earth, establishes you. He sets his fire among those who plotted against you. Middle register. The sunbark is separated from the rest of the middle register by a double line, and from now on, Ra is encircled by the protecting serpent Mahan. The crew is reinforced with the Nuchart Auset, standing at the prow and stretching out her arms against Pepi, thus using her magic power to enchant him. Auset, Sia, percipients, eldest magician. Mahan, flesh of Ra, Haru of fragrance, bull of Ma'at, the vigilant one. Hu, utterance, guide of the bark. The text above the sunbark reads, this great Nuchar passes along in this place on the path of the cavern of Ausir, being elevated by the magic of Auset and the eldest magician, to turn away from horrible efface. This magic of Auset and the eldest magician is enacted to ward off Pepi from Ra in the west, in the secrecy of the Du'at. It is performed likewise on earth. Who performs it is present in the bark of Ra in heaven and in earth. It requires little to know this image. He who knows it cannot be repelled by horrible efface. The huge serpent Pepi, facing the bark, is already bound and transfixed with knives. At his head stands the Nuchart Sarkat, at his tail a Nuchar holding his chains. Pepi, she who lets the throat breathe, Sarkat, he above his knives. The text describes Pepi and his sandbank on which he is lying after swallowing up the waterway of the sunbark. The sandbank of horrible efface in the Du'at. It is 440 units of measure in length. He fills it with his coils, and his slaughter is made against him, without this great Nuchar passing by him when he turns away from him at the cavern of Ausir. This Nuchar passes along in this place in the image of the Mahan serpent. Above Pepi, the text reads, he is like this at his sandbank, which is in the Du'at. Bringing water is the name of this sandbank. It is 440 units of measure in length and 440 units in breadth. It is his, Pepi's, voice which guides the Nuchar toward him. He moves after this great Nuchar has entered this place. Then the flesh of Ra swallows his eye in the earth until he has passed him, Pepi. Then she who lets the throat breathe, Sarkat, throws the lasso at the head, while he above his knives places the punishing rope at his feet, after Auset and the eldest magician have taken his strength by their magic. He who knows it upon earth is one whose water, horrible efface, cannot drink. 4 punishing Nutarut are brandishing knives. She who binds together, she who cuts, she who punishes, she who annihilates. Text above these Nutarut. These are the Nutarut who punish Pepi in the Du'at and repel the assaults of the enemies of Ra. They are like this, carrying their punishing knives to punish Pepi in the Du'at, day after day. After this scene, we see 4 coffers, each with 2 human heads as a sign of personification, and a knife for protection on its lid. They represent again the burial of Ra in his different forms. The end of the register shows a Nuchar with a wa'as in his hand and a Nuchart, which contains the image of a tomb, which contains the image of Khapari, which contains the image of Ra, which contains the image of Ausir, master of the wa'as scepter, she who owns a heart. This text belongs to this scene. These are the mysterious forms of the DjHwtymos, the caskets of the earth, the heads of the mysteries. They are at the end of this sandbank. The heads and knives in them come out when they hear the enchantment of horrible of face. Then they swallow their images again, after this great Nutjar has passed this place. The master of the scepter and she who owns a heart are the guardians of these mysterious images. The soul of him who knows it cannot perish by violence of their knives. Lower register. The lower register starts with a hawk-headed Haru seated on a throne and holding a and an with the sun disk on his head. Facing him are 12 Nutjaru with stars on their heads. Haru upon his throne, with rich supply, master of supply, master of what the earth needs, he of the DjHwtymos, driver of the stars, spirits, he with raised arm, he with protected arm, he with strong arm, he who cuts with his tongue, he who cuts with his eye, he who smites heads. Text above Haru and the star Nutjaru. This image is Haru upon his throne. This image is like this, what he has to do in the DjHwtymos, to make the star Nutjaru move and to set the positions of the hours in the DjHwtymos. The majesty of Haru of the DjHwtymos says to the star Nutjaru, "May your flesh be in order, may your forms come into being, that you may rest in your stars. You rise indeed before this Ra of the horizon, who is in the DjHwtymos, day after day. You are behind him, your stars before him, until I have passed through the beautiful west in peace. You are the rising ones in the earth. You belong indeed to me, your stars, however, to him who is in heaven, so that he is satisfied, the Lord of the horizon." In the opposite direction, 12 Nutjarut are also wearing a star on their heads. They are dressed as Nutjarut of the hours. She who adores, mistress of the earth, lady of ladies, she of the DjHwtymos, she who devours, she who commands the energies, she who brings, she who is colored, Ta'it, Nutjar of weaving, she who creates brightness, she who creates forms, she who frees from misfortune. The majesty of Haru of the DjHwtymos says to the hour Nutjarut in this place, "O hours which have come into being! O star hours! O hours protecting Ra, who fight on behalf of him in the horizon! May you receive your forms, may you bear your images and raise your heads, when you guide this Ra who is in the horizon to the beautiful west in peace." These are the Nutjaru and the Nutjarut who guide the great Nutjar to the path of this place. The register closes with a crocodile on a mound of sand from which a human head of Ausir emerges. This is the head of Ausir, and the text of this scene also speaks about the eye of Ausir, whose limbs were rescued from the water and are now guarded by the crocodile. Crocodile in the DjHwtymos, eye of Ausir, head of Ausir. He is like this on the sandy shore. It is he who guards the image of this place. When he hears the voice of the crew of the bark of Ra, the eye goes forth from his spine, and then the head, which is in the riverbank, appears also. Then he swallows his image again, after this great Nutjar has passed him. He who knows it is one whose soul the crocodile cannot swallow. Eighth hour. The upper and lower registers of this hour are divided into 5 caverns or vaults, closed by wooden doors, painted red, that open at the invocation of Ra passing between them. Again, the doors are called knives. Introduction. Pausing by the majesty of this great Nutjar and the caverns of the mysterious Nutjaru who are upon their sand, He gives them orders from their bark, and his Ncheru tow him in this place in the protected form of the Makhan serpent. The name of the gate of this place is which stands without getting tired. The name of this place is Casket of her Ncheru. The name of the hour of the night guiding this great Ncher is Mistress of the Deep Night. The mysterious caverns of the west, which this great Ncher passes in his bark, being towed by his Ncheru who are in the Duat. This is done like this image of the northern side of the hidden chamber in the Duat. He who knows them by their names will have clothing in the earth, without being repelled from the mysterious gates. He will be fed at the great tomb, a true remedy. Upper Register. First cavern. All deities in the upper register are seated on the hieroglyph for clothing, to show their provision with clothes. The caverns and the doors bear all names. The three Ncheru in this first cavern are a Ncher with a white crown and two Ncheru without attributes. Knife. Lord of Sanctity, name of door. Image of a tomb. Image of Khapari. Image of shoe. They are like this on their clothing, as the mystery of Haru, the heir of Ausir. This Ncher, he calls to their souls when he has entered into this place of the Ncheru who are upon their sand. A sound is heard from this cavern like much humming of bees when their souls call to Ra. Mysterious is the name of this cavern. The three deities of the second cavern, a Ncher between two Ncherut, without attribute, continue the Ennead. Knife, standing one of Tachinen, name of door. Image of Tefnut. Image of Geb. Image of Nut. They are like this on their clothing, remaining on their sand as a mystery made by Haru. This Ncher, he calls to their souls near them. A sound is heard from this cavern, like the sound of banging on metal, when their souls call to Ra. Duat is the name of this cavern. The three deities of the third cavern complete the Ennead, a Ncher, a Nutyat, and a hawk-headed Ncher. Knife, with hovering souls, name of the door. Image of Ausir, image of Auset, image of Haru. They are like this on their clothing, remaining on their sand as a mystery made by Haru. This Ncher, he calls to their souls near them. A sound is heard from this cavern like the sound of humans when they wail in mourning, when their souls call to Ra. Tomb of the Ncheru is the name of this cavern. All three deities of the fourth cavern are animal-headed, those being heads of a bull, a goat, and a rat. Knife, belting the Ncheru, name of the door. Image of the bull of the west. Image of the noblest of the Ncheru. Image of the weeping one of the Ncheru. They are like this on their clothing, remaining on their sand as a mystery made by Haru. This Ncher, he calls to their souls near them. A sound is heard from this cavern, like the bellowing of male bulls, when their souls call to Ra. Mourning is the name of this cavern. The fifth cavern shows again three animal-headed deities, those being heads of a mungo, a catfish, and hippopotamus. Knife, uniting darkness. Image of Khatri. Image of catfish. Image of the one who belongs to his stems. Knife, shadows of those of the Duat, name of the door. They are like this on their clothing, remaining on their sand as a mystery made by Haru. This Ncher, he calls to their souls near them. A sound is heard from this cavern, like the sound of wailing, great in its force, when their souls call to Ra. Lady of Wind is the name of this cavern. Middle Register. The sun bark in the middle register, again with the usual crew. Wapau Wahwet, opener of the ways. Sia, percipients. Lady of the bark. Mahan, flesh of Ra. Haru of fragrance. Bull of Ma'at, the vigilant one. Hu, utterance. Guide of the bark. Text above the bark. This great Nutcher passes along in this place, being towed by the Nutcheru of the Duat, in this mysterious image of the Mekhan serpent. This Nutcher, he calls near every cavern of this place to the Nutcheru who are in it, and it is their sound which this Nutcher hears, after he is called to them. The image of their body remains upon their corpses, which are under their sand, and their gates are open for the voice of this Nutcher, day after day. Then they are covered again, after he has passed them. The sunbark is being towed by 8 Nutcheru, corresponding to the number of the hour. The Nutcheru who tow Ra in the casket of her Nutcheru. Text above the towing Nutcheru. What they have to do in the Duat. To tow Ra to the paths of this place. They stop after they have towed at this gateway. They say to this Nutcher, while they tow him, "Come indeed to your images, our Nutcher, to your those who belong to the tomb, who are in the west, that you rest in your forms in the greatest city. It is Ra indeed, whom the cavern dwellers revere, when you illuminate the darkness of those upon their sand. Come indeed to yourself, that you may rest, Ra, who is towed, Lord of the towing." In front of the towing Nutcheru are 9 so-called Shemes signs, ideogram, follow, and related words. Personified signs for the jurisdiction of Ra as well as for his retinue. Each of them is again provided with a small hieroglyph for clothing. Who rests in the earth. Concealer. Who makes the soul's secret. Who brings the shadows to rest. Lord of all. Offering jar. Road guide. Witness. Judge. Text above the Shemes signs. Those who belong to the tomb of Ra who are in this place. Mysterious images of Ta'chenin where Haru hid the Nutcheru. They are like this on the path upon which this Nutcher is towed. Their clothing is before them as images of the Nutcher himself. When this great Nutcher calls to them, what is in them becomes alive, and the heads go forth from their images. This Nutcher, he calls them by their names. What they have to do, planting knives into the enemies of Ra, near this place to which they belong. Then they swallow their heads and their knives again, after this Nutcher has passed by them. They are preceded by a procession of 4 rams. The first has a sun disk on his horns, the second the white crown, the third the red crown, and the fourth the pair of feathers, and again all are provided with the hieroglyph for clothing. First manifestation, image of Ta'chenin. Second manifestation, image of Ta'chenin. Third manifestation, image of Ta'chenin. Fourth manifestation, image of Ta'chenin. Text above the rams. Secret image of Ta'chenin. First manifestation of the rams who are in the earth, where Haru hid the Nutcheru. They are like this in the Duat. Their clothing is before them as images of the Nutcher himself. This Nutcher, he calls to them after he has reached them, and they too, they call to this Nutcher with their voices of mysterious rams. This Nutcher, he is joyful at their voices, but after he has passed by them, darkness envelops them. They receive the diadems of Ra, whilst the soul of Ta'chenin rests in the earth. Lower register. The lower register continues, the caverns of the upper, again with 5 caverns, with names closed by wooden doors with names. The deities inside the 6th cavern consist of a Nutcher, the coiled Mekhan serpent, 3 arrows over 2 signs for clothing, and a ram-headed Nutcher sitting on the sign for clothing. Knife, half of the earth, name of the door. Maiden, world encircler, arrows of Ra, Lord of Rachit people. They are like this on their clothing, as a mystery of Haru, the heir of Ausir. Great Nutcher, he calls to their souls when he has entered this place of the Nutcheru who are upon their sand. This Nutcher calls them in both sides of the earth. A sound is heard from this cavern, like the cry of a tomcat, when their souls call to Ra. Satisfying her lord is the name of this cavern. The three deities of the seventh cavern are sitting on the sign for clothing. First Amdw3t, then Amdw3t, both personifying the region and the whole DjHwtymos, followed by the crocodile-headed Amdw3t, also on a sign for clothing. Knife, which drives off his enemies, name of the door. Place, Ta, earth, land. Clever-faced. They are like this on their clothing. Remaining on their sand is a mystery made by Haru. This Amdw3t, he calls to their souls near them on both sides of them. A sound is heard from this cavern like the bleating of sheep when their souls call to Ra. She who annihilates the ignorant is the name of this cavern. Inside the eighth cavern are 4 standing female mummies, each with the sign of clothing before them. Knife, with powerful forms, name of the door. She who veils, the Dark One. She who decorates, she who puts together. They are like this, their clothing before them, remaining on their sand as a mystery made by Haru. This Amdw3t, he calls to their souls near them on both sides of them. A sound is heard from this cavern like the falling of the shores into the noon, when their souls call to Ra. She who envelops her images is the name of this cavern. The ninth cavern contains 4 standing male mummies with clothing hieroglyphs in front of them. Knife, with pointed flames, name of the door. Darkness, butcher, who keeps off the spirits. Hacker of the earth. They are like this, their clothing before them, remaining on their sand is a mystery made by Haru. This Amdw3t, he calls to their souls, near them on both sides of them. A sound is heard from this cavern like the piercing cry of a divine hawk when their souls are called to Ra. Removing her souls is the name of this cavern. Inside the 10th cavern we see 4 Uraeus serpents on signs for clothing. Knife, with shining spirits, name of the door at the beginning. Ya'rat, Uraeus serpent. The sinuous one, the flaming one, she who is sharp in attack. Knife, which consumes the dead through the serpents which are in it, name of the door at the end of the cavern. They are like this on their clothing, remaining on their sand. This Amdw3t, he calls to them, near them. Then their darkness is illuminated by the fire which is in their mouth, without their coming forth from their cavern. A sound is heard from this cavern like the cry of a whole nest of birds when they call to Ra. Great of torches is the name of this cavern.